Hey guys, been a while, huh? Well, there are a number of reasons for that, but it basically boils down to this. I knew long before I made this video that this was going to be a tricky one to make. SMT is a very different beast from the games I've covered so far, most notably because the game has a very different focus than the others. That is to say, rather than a more traditional storytelling method, one based primarily around the characters, SMT is instead more based around the world, or the journey that the player is going on. This puts it more in line with games like Etrian Odyssey or the early Dragon Quests. More of an adventure and less of a set story. And this is all well and good, there's nothing wrong with making a game like that, but it presents me, the one who sets out to summarize this sort of thing, with a bit of a dilemma. Basically, if I were to cover the events of this game like I normally do, it would boil down to little more than a list. You travel to the first town where you fight a boss, then you travel back to the hub town where they tell you about the second town where you'll fight another boss, and that continues so on and so forth for the entirety of the game. And well, frankly, at least in my opinion, it would not be a very interesting video to bother watching. So I debated with myself for a little bit on what exactly it was I wanted to do with the video, and this script went through a lot of rewrites. At one point it was like 40 minutes long and really brief. At another point it was like 3 parts, and I tried to do voice acting, and just be glad you're not in the universe where I decided to stick with that script. Anyways, this is what I eventually came up with, and it's a little different from what I usually do. I thought this time I would try to do something a little more in line with the intent behind SMT. So, this time around, rather than a more broad summary like I usually do, we are going to be covering, I guess, my experience of Shin Megami Tensei 2. I have no idea how well it will work at this point. I've rewritten this script so many times that I have no idea what's up and down anymore. But, hopefully, this way, you'll be able to see what it's like to play Shin Megami Tensei 2. Anyways, here's the video. I hope you enjoy.
Decades ago, humanity was nearly wiped out in an event known as the Great Cataclysm. Cities were reduced to rubble as demons, awakened by the destruction, began to terrorize the human race. Yes, things are looking bleak for humanity. And yet, not all hope is lost. A religious group, calling themselves the Messiahs, managed to band together and begin construction of a great work. A massive city they call Millennium Tokyo. Inside the city, the church provides the essentials for life. Food, shelter, organization, and above all else, protection from the majority of the demons plaguing the land. As a result, many hundreds of thousands of people flock to Millennium, and so here it stands, the last bastion of humanity, the shimmering hope of mankind. Millennium itself is split into many different districts. Some provide food, some leisure, some culture, etc., etc. But all fall under one jurisdiction, a great tower that stands directly in the center of Millennium, aptly named the, center. Inside the center is the Messiah Church's headquarters, where the devout Messiah followers work tirelessly to protect the people of Millennium. They also preach a message of hope, a prophecy, a belief that one day a Messiah will appear among us, one chosen by the gods to lead the people of Millennium and save the world from the turmoil it currently finds itself in.
I awoke to what is now a familiar sound, the gruff yelling of a man named Hagurumadou, demanding I get my lazy ass out of bed. It's not the most pleasing thing to wake up to, but I'm used to it at this point. Anyways, looks like Hagurumadou wants me to get back to training for the tournament. I considered arguing against him, but decided it was pointless. I mean, trying to argue with that guy is like trying to convince a zombie dog to shake a paw. But before I had a chance to say anything at all, Hagurumadou had already shoved 200 maca into my hand and pushed me out the gym door, ordering me to go train in one of the nearby virtual training machines. 200 maca, what a cheapskate. Well, whatever, might as well get going around town while I have the freedom. Name's Hawk, by the way. Well, to be completely honest, that's the name Okamata gave to me. You see, I actually have amnesia. I know, sounds like some cliche video game bullshit, but what can I say? The last memory I have is getting into a brawl with a couple zombies. After that, I woke up inside that shack that Okamata calls a gym. Seems like the old man dragged my near-dead corpse out of the mud and nursed me back to health, so I am grateful to him for that. Though I can't help but shake the feeling that he only did it to promote his gym. Guess he figures I'm sort of great warrior after watching me defeat those zombies with my bare hands. I don't know anything about that, but, you know, whenever I'm in a fight, it feels... how do I put this? Natural? I don't know, maybe it's giving me some sort of hint about who I used to be. Well, whatever, thanks to my talent, and as a way to pay the old guy back, I've been taking part in a tournament. Oh, I guess I should mention where I am. This place is called Valhalla. It's a moderately sized subdivision at the northern end of Millennium. It's pretty well known for two reasons. The first being that the center doesn't exert a whole lot of influence over the place, meaning a lack of regulations by the Messiah Church, but also less protection from the demons crawling all over the place. Which in turn leads to the second reason why it's well known, which would be the sleaze. Some woman calling herself Madame runs Valhalla, and she's made it her mission in life to let the place be as free as it wants. As such, Valhalla is rampant with all the seediest aspects of humanity: booze, gambling, blood sport, and perhaps skeeviest of all, disco. The earth falls into a demon-filled wasteland, and yet somehow the 70s survive. Well, whatever, the biggest attraction of Valhalla has to be the Colosseum, where many a powerful warrior fights in gladiatorial combat, all to the backdrop of a cheering crowd. The prize for winning such a tournament is eternal glory and direct recognition from the head of Valhalla, Madame, which I'm pretty sure that's what Old Man Okamato's actually after, as well as the center itself. So, as you can imagine, a lot of people enter it and a lot of people die every year in a vain attempt at winning that glory. But this year, they're wasting their time. I'm actually one of the finalists in that tournament. I don't want to brag or anything, but I'm pretty confident in my chances. So far, every fighter I've come across hasn't put up even a token resistance. Kinda hoping that the finalist at least gives me some kind of challenge. Well, whatever, I guess you can never be too prepared. Maybe I should go over and... With her piece said, I was pushed out of the Fortuneteller's place, scratching my head. Well, whatever. I mean, no use trying to wrap my head around it. You run into a lot of crazy characters around this place. Think I'll go hit the hay and get ready for tomorrow. The cheers of the crowd dully echoed through the small chamber I was sitting in. The tournament finals were just about to go underway. Old Man Okamato was halfway through giving me some sort of pep talk, but I barely heard him. I was entirely focused on getting ready for the fight ahead. Before the actual battle begins in these things, they make you run through some sort of labyrinth that they released a couple demons in. Guess it's to add some sort of spice to the fight, make it so the fighters are more wild and desperate when they actually run into one another. As I waited, listening to the dull beat of the crowd pounding overhead, I casually glanced down at my comp attached to my wrist, and remembered an encounter from the day before. What a strange program. But I had already gone to the liberty of testing it out, and sure enough, I had a Hypixia knocker more than willing to follow my commands. You just gotta feed them this weird metal called magnetite, and the things practically throw themselves at you. I never thought these demons could be so cooperative. My thoughts were cut short, however, as the announcer called out my name. I was dragged out to the center stage. The roar of the crowd, previously muffled by the walls of the arena, turned into a deafening roar as I walked out. The announcer introduced us as Hawk, and his opponent, Red Bear. Never seen the guy before, but he certainly has a hulking figure. Well, it's not like I've ever had any trouble taking down guys bigger than me before. With the announcement over, the two of us were slowly lowered into the labyrinth below, and the match was truly underway. I didn't waste any time. I began to make my way around the maze. As was to be expected, several demons blocked my path at a couple turns, but they posed little more than speed bumps as I barreled through them. Without hesitation, I made my way to the center ring, where I found my opponent Red Bear, already waiting for me. Impressive to make it here faster than me, I guess. And so the match began. Despite his size, the man was surprisingly quick, and he caught me off guard. With two quick motions, he disposed of both my Hypixia and my knocker in a single blow. Impressive. Now I'm actually starting to get a bit excited. We exchanged blows for a while, and he even managed to push me back to the brink, farther than any opponent I had faced before had managed to. But in the end, even he wasn't enough, and with a quick slash from my knife, I brought down the mighty Red Bear. Another day, huh? I was summoned into Old Man Okamoto's room. It looks like he had wasted no time in abusing the status that comes with winning a tournament. Already he had set up shop in a new gym, one far grander than that shack we'd been staying in before. Well, at least the beds are a whole lot comfier. Anyways, it seems like Okamoto had some news for me, surprisingly. He motioned behind me, and I turned to see a woman walk through the door. She was stunning, unlike anyone I'd ever seen before. She walked up to me and gave me a small smile, and that's when I realized that my jaw was still hanging slightly agape. She asked if I was the new champion of the Arena Hawk, to which I could only manage a stiff nod. She introduced herself as Hiroko, and that she came directly from the center to find me. It seems like she's looking for someone, well, several someones. About 6 months ago, there was a large explosion in the science department at the center that was caused by two scientists called Mekata and Hanada. In the confusion, both the scientists and a small boy disappeared. It looks like Hiroko is looking for that little boy, thinking that perhaps the scientists took him with them. All that searching has led her here, where she found out that one of the scientists, Hanada, was supposedly working directly under the head of Valhalla, Madame. Since the winner of the tournament is granted the privilege of meeting with Madame, she wants me to bring her along with her when I go to meet her, so she can find the whereabouts of this scientist. Well, to be honest, I had kind of planned on blowing off that meeting. Can't imagine I'd have much to say to a big name like Madame, but I guess I'm not cruel enough to turn away a lady who's asking for help, so I agreed to bring her with me. I guess she wasn't exactly sure how I was going to respond as she threw herself around my arm and thanked me with a big smile plastered across her face. I could feel the tips of my ears getting hotter. Well, no use beating around the bush. The two of us decided to head to Madame's mansion immediately. The place was impressively big and even more impressively guarded. But it seems like winning a tournament does have its benefits, as the guards recognized me almost immediately and happily opened the door, letting both me and Hiroko through with little fuss. After a walk down a surprisingly long and spacious hallway, we arrived at the main chamber where we were greeted with a screen. Before long, it crackled to life, and a lady's visage appeared upon it. She greeted us, introducing herself as Madame, the one who watches over Valhalla. She informed me that she actually had more of a reason to summon me here today than she does most champions. You see, apparently, a former center scientist that had been working for her had recently gone rogue, stealing several valuable items and making to a remote corner of Valhalla. The items in question were supposedly capable of opening a rift, a portal to a place known as Abyss, a place absolutely teeming with horrendously powerful demons. Nothing like the poltergeists and zombies that crowd around this place. If he were to open the rift, then Hanada would be able to unleash an invasion upon the unsuspecting populace of Valhalla. Upon hearing the name Hanada, Hiroko spoke up, asking if it truly was Hanada, the one from the center who had gone AWOL, and Madame simply nodded. In any event, it seems like Madame wants me personally to go find this Hanada character. Being the winner of the tournament and all, I would be the best candidate to help in hunting down this dangerous man. Try to track him down before he unleashes literal hell on Earth. But she doesn't expect us to do this without any sort of help from her, and with emotion she pointed to the left, where before our eyes materialized a rather intimidating looking demon. Madame introduced him as Cerberus, and even just watching him sit there I could tell he was incredibly powerful. Probably too much for even me to handle at my current strength. It looks like Madame really does have quite a bit of power at her disposal. In any event, Cerberus simply glared at us while Madame casually offered him as an assistance in our search for Hanada. Hiroko and I bowed in thanks, and Madame wished us luck in our quest before we were escorted out of the mansion. Once we were outside, Cerberus growled under his breath in a somewhat otherworldly voice that he hopes we don't slow him down before resolutely marching off. Hiroko and I both glanced to one another before shrugging and following suit. It was a fair walk, but eventually we arrived at a place known as the slums of Valhalla. Burnt and toppled buildings littered the street side, and the number of demons was noticeably thicker. Still, we made our way through. Sure enough, Cerberus was a veritable force to behold and was easily able to dispatch with any demon that got in our way in a single hit. Though I did do my best to keep up with him where I could, and even Hiroko proved to be surprisingly proficient at dealing with demons. She even was gifted with magic, something I'd seen several demons pull off, but I never realized humans could do as well. In any event, while the slums were a bit of a maze to navigate, Cerberus seemed to know where he was going. Every once in a while, he would bend over to sniff something before silently continuing on, leaving me and Hiroko no option other than to follow. And well, sure enough, before long, we arrived at a large door. I don't know why, but as we approached it, I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck begin to rise. But undeterred, we pushed through the door, and sure enough, there he stood. Hanada turned at the sound of us entering, and jumped about a foot in the air in surprise. He took a second to compose himself before bursting out into laughter. Something about how great a scientist he was, and how the thick-headed center and foolish Madame just couldn't understand his vision. I don't know. Why do people like this always love to hear the sound of their own voice? Whatever, I took a step towards him, looking to restrain him, but before I could do anything, he pulled 4 objects from his pockets and threw them towards several pedestals that sat at the back of the room. They were, dolls. As soon as the dolls were placed, a rumbling occurred. The room itself began to shake, and before our eyes, we watched as the pentagram disintegrated, leaving a gaping hole behind. And from that hole emerged a demon. An odd mix of man and serpent. It was hard to tell exactly what comprised it. Hanada ordered the demon to kill us while laughing maniacally, but his laughter was abruptly cut short as the demon's claw plunged through his chest, leaving the man only a few moments to stare in disbelief before collapsing, dead. The 3 of us didn't really have time to come to terms with what we witnessed, though, as the demon, having dealt with his former summoner, now turned on us. Still, despite its impressive size, Cerberus was more than a match for it, and I'm pretty sure even I and Hiroko would have been enough to fend it off. With its defeat, the hole that Hanada had opened collapsed. Thankfully, it looks like his experiment failed. As I let out a small sigh, Hiroko ran forward to inspect Hanada's body. After a short search, she let out a small sigh of her own, before turning to the 4 dolls on the pedestal. She eyed them for a bit before grabbing the lot of them and tossing them to me, suggesting I hold on to them. I wasn't sure I had much use for them myself, but I guess better to hold on to them than let them fall into the hands of someone willing to pull a stunt like that again. With our job complete, the 3 of us made our way back to Madame's manor. As we entered her chamber again, Cerberus turned to return from whence he had originally been summoned from. But before he left, he let out a gruff thanks, hoping we could work together again sometime. As he left, once again, the massive screen Madame used to communicate with crackled to life. Upon seeing us, she thanked us on managing to stop Hinata, even though we hadn't been able to bring him back alive. She also expressed that someone was here to see me, apparently. With that said, she bowed in thanks and disappeared, and a man walked out from the corner of the room. He was clearly from the center. He wore the distinctive blue and white cloths that adorn all members of the Messian Church. Without leaving us much of an opportunity to respond, the bulky figure of Zane pushed us towards the exit. It was a lot to take in. I was a member of the Center all along? Well, I guess if I'm ever to uncover the secrets of my past, I have no choice but to go along with this. So, this is the center, huh? I'd been brought inside a massive tower, one far larger than any building had any right to be, going up and up as far as the eye could see. From the ground, it appeared to be scraping the underside of the clouds. It's inside here that the heart of Millennium beats. In any event, upon our arrival, Zane immediately brought us before an elderly bishop. He too seemed to instantly recognize me and welcomed me back with a wide smile. I was still at a loss of how to behave, so I simply shook his hand, whereupon he handed me an ID card, proof that I'm a citizen of the center. After he was done addressing me, he turned to Hiroko, and I couldn't help but notice his brow slightly furrow. The bishop asked her what exactly had she been thinking running off from the center like that, before calling a pair of guards to escort her to his office for an explanation. I took a step forward at the sudden hostility, but a glance from Hiroko stopped me in my tracks. She simply smiled at me, thanking me for helping out a stranger like her, even if we never did find the boy she was looking for. She walked out of the room, guards in tow, waving goodbye, claiming that we'd hopefully meet again sometime. I watched her go, a small feeling of anxiousness forming in the back of my mind. But after a moment, I shook my head and pushed that worry away. She seemed more than happy to comply with the bishop. They're probably just going to give her a light slap on the wrist for bending the rules, right? For now, I turned back to the bishop, his warm smile once again returned. The bishop noted that I certainly must be confused. After all, my memories were erased by a man named Mikata, and so he began to inform me of my past. Apparently, I was born under special conditions. I wasn't just another citizen. I was the result of an ancient prophecy the Messian Church has been waiting for millennia. I was the savior of humanity, the Messiah, destined to bring prosperity to the land and salvation to its people. It seems that Millennium itself has actually been a grand project undertaken by the Messian religion at the start of the Great Calamity. This project was designed to usher in a new era, a utopia known as the 1,000-Year Kingdom, whereupon mankind would know a peace and prosperity unlike it has ever known before. And I, the Messiah, am to be the guide who brings upon that future. I blinked, unable to move any other part of my body. I mean, how could anyone when that much information is dumped on them? But before I had time to stammer anything out, the bishop turned around and beckoned. From the shadows emerged a young woman I'd never met before. The bishop introduced her as Beth, claiming she was born to be my partner, one who would assist me in everything I do, one who would never leave my side. The woman bowed rather gracefully, again introducing herself as Beth. Her words were measured, but also for some reason seemed very calming. She claimed that she knows I don't remember her or anything of the circumstances surrounding my past, but that it's okay. Piece by piece, I'll slowly remember my past, and she'll be with me every step of the way. With that, she promptly walked to my side and turned back to face the bishop. My eyes couldn't help but dart towards her, but I still was unable to voice any of the thousands of conflicting emotions that were running through my mind. So I too simply turned back to the bishop. With the pleasantries finished, the bishop's wide smile faded again. He claimed he was sorry, but it looks like I won't be able to enjoy much of the center's hospitality at the moment. A great problem has arisen within Millennium, one that would benefit greatly from the help of the Messiah. Apparently, a pair of demons have started running rampant in the western district of Holytown. The first is the Basilisk, a hideous monstrosity known to spread toxic gas wherever it treads, and even turn people to stone. The second was a being known as King Frost. Jack Frosts are a well-known, abundant species of demon, one of the less aggressive species, instead more known for being an annoyance, playing pranks on unsuspecting individuals. Well, apparently, their king doesn't share their mischievous attitude and has covered Holytown in a sheet of ice. The two must be dealt with in order to ensure the citizens' safety, and as the Messiah, I'm duty-bound to help where I can. And with that, Beth and I were ushered out of the room. Well, it looks like I really get no say in this matter, huh? But, I mean, I guess I'm not against helping out people, and, putting these fighting skills I seem to have to the benefit of society would be a worthwhile thing to do. So, yes, I will go and help these people, although I'm really not sure I'm Messiah material. So the two of us began our journey to Holytown, a small quadrant to the west of Millennium that had originally been planned to be a mainstay of the majority of the Messiah Church, but ended up getting scrapped due to some unknown circumstances. It was a fairly long journey. Traveling with Beth felt quite a bit different than it did with Hiroko. Hiroko always seemed to be constantly scanning her surroundings, every once in a while letting out small comments or observations. It felt like she was always finding something new to be interested in. Beth, on the other hand, seemed almost entirely focused on me. Sure, she always paid attention to where she was going, but it seemed like she took notice of every little thing I did. If I ever asked her to do something, she would do it without a second thought. Twice, I slightly stumbled on some uneven footing, and both times, before I even realized it, she had caught me and helped stabilize me. It was an odd feeling. As a result, my journey with Beth felt much quieter than the one with Hiroko. In any case, eventually the two of us arrived at our destination, Holytown. Sure enough, the place was frigid. As we walked out into the frozen landscape, Beth pointed to my left. I turned to see a row of buildings, and as I squinted at them, suddenly I saw something dart from one shadow to the next. Something rather large. Upon a closer inspection, it looks like there could be no doubt. This is one of our targets, Basilisk. Beth and I tried to get close, but it seemed wary of us at first, quickly scampering whenever we got close. But eventually, after we persistently kept hounding the thing, the great beast turned to face us, spreading its wings to show its true size. Fortunately, Beth was possibly even more competent in battle than Hiroko was, and with the help of a friendly pair of Jack brothers, we were able to bring the beast down before it was able to spread its toxin around too much. With our first enemy slain, all that remains is that King Frost. We traveled around Holytown a fair bit looking for him, and found the place to be basically deserted. It looks like everyone had been evacuated successfully, at least. In any case, we kept wandering for quite a while, until eventually we came across a massive church, presumably part of the failed Holytown project. Upon entering the church, the temperature dropped substantially. We scoured the place, but like I said, it was a truly massive church, so there were a lot of hiding places to go through. Still, we eventually made it to a small room hidden in the back of the church, where, sure enough, we found him. The king of all Jack Frosts, King Frost. True to his name, his ice-based attacks were certainly formidable, capable of freezing us in our tracks, but thankfully, after a drawn-out battle, we were able to withstand his onslaught and eventually bring down the mighty King Frost. With him gone, the frigid mist that once permeated the church's halls began to dissipate. Beth smiled, brushing a bit of excess snow off her cloak. "The first great deed of the Messiah is completed," she stated. I was unsure how to respond to that, so silently turned and began to make my way out of the church. Beth quickly followed suit. After a somewhat restless night back in the center, the next day I was once again called into the bishop's office. He congratulated me on my achievement in driving off the demons in Holytown before explaining why he had called me here. Apparently, another emergency has appeared in another sector of Millennium, this time the Factory District, a rather massive industrial area where just about all of Millennium's food and resources come from. It seems like the mine managed to dig its way directly into a demon's burrow of sorts.
and a hideous beast known as Betelgeuse is causing havoc amongst the miners. What's more, due to the chaos caused by Betelgeuse, the Nandi, a weak but numerous cow-like demon that the farmers have been raising as livestock, have started to run amok, causing all sorts of damage to the infrastructure surrounding them. Well, again, it's not like I'm against helping out people in trouble, so I agreed to go, and with that, Beth and I made our way towards the factory, which was on the south side of Millennium this time. Upon our arrival, the Nandi situation became exceedingly apparent. The damn things were everywhere. Beth and I spent the better part of the day wearing them down and rounding them back up to their corrals. The Nandi themselves were pretty weak, so it wasn't too bad, but the sheer number of them made the task tedious. Still, after a while, we did manage to calm the rampaging Nandi, and were thanked rather graciously by the farmers who tended to them. They then directed us towards the mine, where the start of all this ruckus began. The mine itself was not as twisted or convoluted as most of the infrastructure I've come to expect in Millennium, but it was very deep, so it was quite a long journey down. What's more, the lighting in certain sections had been knocked out, meaning we had to blindly feel our way about to get to the door. Still, after a while, we did make it to the bottom, where, of course, we found him, the twisted visage of Betelgeuse. It was an odd fight. The thing seemed to prefer confusing my demons with odd moves before going in for the kill, rather than straight up fighting. Still, all it really takes at this point is a bit of brute force, and with the help of a rather powerful angel that had decided to lend me a hand, we were able to drive back the beast. The miners, who had been apparently watching us from afar, let out a hearty cheer and quickly rushed out to congratulate and thank us for ridding them of that pest. You know, if things keep going like this, maybe being the Messiah ain't so bad after all. I actually got a day off yesterday. Zayn felt I'd been doing a lot to help the citizens of Millennium, so he decided to show me what the center considers to be its pride and joy, a place known as Arcadia to the east of the center, and only accessible via terminal for some reason. In any event, while I was there, I met another supposed person of my past, a man named Gimmel, to see if he could help me in jogging my forgotten memories. Unfortunately, no such luck on that front, but he did explain the purpose of Arcadia. Apparently, it's an experiment being done by the Center, trying to establish a utopia that humanity can live in for all time once the prophecy is fulfilled. At the moment, it's just a small corner of the city, but hopefully, once demonkind has been eliminated, all of humanity will find safety within its walls. Well, in any event, it was nice to have a day where hellish monstrosities weren't constantly trying to attack the local populace. That's what I was thinking to myself as I was summoned once again to the bishop's office to deal with yet another threat to the peace of Millennium. However, this time, the bishop informed me that it wasn't a deranged demon running amok. No, it was a human the church had dubbed the Anti-Messiah. The man was apparently going around claiming he himself was the true Messiah and that I am a false prophecy. Being called the Messiah still feels about as natural as a pair of pants made out of Nekomata fur, but it's not like I can just sit back and let some punk-ass badmouth me. So again, I agreed to go and see who exactly this anti-Messiah is. And it took a bit of snooping around, but eventually I actually managed to track him down to my old stomping grounds, the sleazy back streets of Valhalla. After asking around a few places, I eventually got informed that I personally had been called out by the Anti-Messiah, a man going by the name Daleth. Apparently, as the center said, he's been blabbing to everyone he runs into that he's the true Messiah, and to prove it, he's going to take part in a no-bars-held fight to the death with me in Valhalla's Grand Arena. I already know the arena management would do everything in their power to make this fight public. Fine, whatever. If it's a fight Daleth wants, it's a fight he shall have. I nodded to Beth, and the two of us descended into the pit beneath the arena to once again take part in gladiatorial combat. Already knowing the place like the back of my hand, I quickly made my way to the center of the ring, where sure enough, a man was waiting for me. But at this point, I had had enough of this clown show. I cocked my gun and ready to let fly another salvo, but before I could react, Dallas pulled something from his cloak and hurled it towards my feet. A blinding light surrounded me, and I dropped to my knees, pain enveloping me. I just could barely lift my head to see Dallas preparing yet another attack. I winced in anticipation of the attack that was coming. I cocked my gun and placed it against Dal's temple. My finger was shaking. Every fiber of my being told me to pull the trigger, but I couldn't do it. I pulled my gun away and turned my attention to the motionless Beth. I turned her over in my arms, and her eyes opened, letting out a weak smile. She thanked me for not killing Daleth, claiming that he deserved to live. She also thanked me for letting her be a part of my journey. Yes, it had been her duty, her purpose in life to assist me, but somehow, being with me made her very, very happy. With that, she drew her last breath and fell limp. I stared blankly into the middle distance. Everything felt hollow. A vision of yesterday's events flashed before my eyes. The bishop appeared before the masses in the arena and officially declared me as the Messiah, my big debut before the entirety of Millennium. The crowd cheered with a force I had never seen before. It seemed like the coming of a new Messiah had truly brought the people joy. But all I could see was the body of Beth lying before me. A scene of her saving me flashed before my eyes over and over again. If only I'd been more powerful. If only I hadn't been so reckless. Maybe I could have saved her. Seems like in the confusion of the crowd, Daleth managed to somehow sneak away. I considered going after him, but Beth didn't want revenge. But then what do I do? As far as I'm concerned, this Messiah title is feeling more and more like... Wait a minute, Mekita? Like, the scientist Hiroko was looking for who supposedly abducted this child? The one who supposedly erased my memories? You know what? Fine. I'm not running from this. Whether it's a trap or whatever, I'm getting to the bottom of all of this. So, once again, I headed off to the slums of Valhalla. While the slums were pretty close by, the walk there felt longer than any I had taken so far. Beth certainly hadn't been much for conversation, but I was surprised at how empty it felt without her presence. Still, eventually I made it to the slums, and after a bit of digging around, I came across the old man from my visions? It was a lot to take in, but for some reason, a part of me told me to believe what the old man was saying. Fine, I'll get to the bottom of this. If the center really does have Hiroko locked away, maybe they're not as holy a place as they claim to be.
So off I went. Mikata gave me the passcode to a shortcut into the factory's holding cells. It led to a place deep beneath Millennium, a massive underground cavern where the ruins of an ancient city known as Tokyo lay. So I made my way deeper and deeper into the Earth's crust, down countless stairs and elevators until suddenly... Something tells me that's not the last I'm going to see of him. Well, I guess he's still alive and kicking. Whatever. I continue my way through the underworld until I come across a massive compound. The place was more confusingly laid out than anything I'd witnessed up in Millennium, which should tell you something, but apparently would lead directly into the holding cells within the factory sector. So I began my march into the depths of the twisting corridors where I... I can't say I've ever met a demon like this before. That being said, despite looking like a child, this Najo is surprisingly powerful, supporting a couple of very useful spells. I guess I won't look a gift, demon in the mouth. With a bit of help from Naja, I was able to work my way through the convoluted mess of a floor plan and eventually find the elevator up into the factory sector. After that, it wasn't long before I was able to root around for a secret entrance and find the center's holding cells. And who should I find waiting for me behind those doors but, So, with a heavy heart, I was forced to confront Zayn. I can tell he's feeling about as conflicted as I am at this point, but I won't step down from my convictions just like he won't. I know for a fact that Hiroko deserves to go free. After a lengthy trading of blows, eventually Zayn dropped to his knees, unable to lift his fists. Well, with that final obstacle out of the way, it looks like I can finally free Hiroko. However, upon seeing me, she immediately recoiled, telling me to leave and shrinking back into her cell. I opened the bars and tried to get her to come out, but she flat out refused to leave. Surprisingly, with Naja's help, Hiroko returned to her senses. It looks like the center really did tamper with her brain in some way, as she recounts her last memory of coming to the factory before everything going dark. After a moment of gaining her composure, she began to realize everything that had happened to her and realized that I had been the one to save her. She leaned forward and, with a wink and a smile, said thank you. I honestly didn't realize how much I missed that smile. After a brief pause, Hiroko began to stretch and asked how exactly I managed to track her down in the first place. Oh, right, crap. I quickly explained to her that I found the scientist, Makata, and he had told me where you were being held and to bring you back to him. Upon hearing Makata's name, Hiroko's eyes widened, and she rushed towards the door, beckoning me to come along. We haven't a moment to lose. We have to get back to Valhalla and get that information. And she's not wrong. Now that the two of us are together, we'll finally get the truth to my past. Finally get an explanation for all this crazy shit that's happened to me. Finally... It's gone. All of it. It's all gone. The arena, market, slums, Madame's mansion, all of it gone. Valhalla is gone.